Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today. On today's show, we're going to be taking a look at Match Group, Ulta Beauty, as well as Zoom Video. I'm Alyssa Corum here with Ed Carson, and we're starting off the show today with a look at the major indexes. It was a pretty lackluster session. The Dow, the only major index able to close in positive territory, and it was only barely. The S&P lost about 0.2%, and the NASDAQ finished down 0.3%, but it was able to hold above that 8,000 level.
Yeah, that was nice. I mean, there was some of the underlying action was also sort of negative. I mean, the Russell 2000 was down more than 1%. A lot of the growth stocks were down. Just a handful of names were like with some big losses. But, ultimately, it seems like a waiting game. There were no real earnings today, no big economic news. The Trump-Z meeting is at the end of the week, maybe. I don't know if it's been officially set. So I think investors are just sort of, it's a wait and see game.
Yeah, just kind of waiting to see what headlines maybe to come later in the week. But Match Group was definitely a bright spot today. We saw that stock finish the day up about 7% in above average turnover here, providing multiple buying opportunities depending on if you were already in this name and a new buy point if you're not yet in Match Group. So we'll take a look at the chart there. What do you make of this strong rebound here?
Well, it was a very strong rebound. When you get a first pullback to the 50-day line, that can be a buying opportunity for existing holders. I mean, some aggressive investors will take a new position, but you don't necessarily need to do that because it's just a little bit higher than that. It has a flat base buy point here, and it was so that would be another entry for the stock. It really had a sort of a I would say almost a shakeout, because on Friday it went through the 50-day line and below sort of the bottom of the base. So if you've been holding it, I could easily see why people would say, I'm getting out of here, or at least taking some profits. But it's nice action. The relative strength line isn't super strong. I think that's because it's been consolidating while the market rallied for much of this month.
Yeah, exactly. Justin and I, we were talking last week how during that base building process, that relative strength line might not look too great, but we do have shares trading now about 5% below a potential entry, which coincides with new all-time highs. So maybe we can see that RS line perk up a little bit. But we do also want to take a look at shares of Ulta Beauty, also around its 50-day line, but testing support at that level after losing almost 3% today in above average turnover. We have news of Amazon launching a professional beauty store, so competing directly with Ulta as well as Sally Beauty. Low prices, 2-day shipping, 1-day shipping, or maybe even same-day shipping for some of these products here. So Amazon taking on another industry here.
Yeah, I mean, there's been little encroachments here and there along the years, and I think there's always been that issue because obviously cosmetics and beauty products aren't, they're pretty easy to ship. So,
right,
I mean, it's not like, selling furniture or something. It's like this would be easy to tack onto your Amazon Prime order, but Ulta has always been seen as resistant to Amazon, but it's not Amazon immune. The stock crossed a buy point, a double bottom buy point a few days ago. It was really sort of a halting breakout. So there was some talk that maybe you should really look at the left-hand side. Either way, the stock is now below either one of those potential buy points. Testing the 50-day line, I think it held support there, but not great. And, it's just a number of breakouts, they've got out. Anything that broke out late last week, with the market sort of pulling back, a lot of them are coming back. And that's what happens when you get sort of a sideways, churny market. Guess what? The trend is your friend. And so this is why we always talk about investing when the market's really in a clear uptrend. Right now, we're sort of in a sideways pattern. I mean, we had a really nice week last week, but you can imagine sort of churning action this week.
Yes, exactly. I would say that it is somewhat positive to see Ulta finding support at the 50-day, but it sure isn't good to see it cross below that level intraday in such heavy volume. And it's yet to be seen how much business this move by Amazon could potentially take away from Ulta. But so far, as you mentioned, it has been resistant, at least on the consumer side with their rewards program that they have.
Yeah, and I'll say that Ulta stock does seem to overreact at times. It has these big moves, and then by the end of the day or the next day, it reacts. It comes right back or it goes back down. It does not. So.
All right. Well, we'll have to see where it goes from here. And in the meantime, let's catch up with Zoom Video, which we have been tracking as an IPO stock, but logged its biggest loss so far since coming public, closing down about 11% after gapping up out of the base on earnings. So round tripping those gains and more.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who bought on the earnings gap, they're now down. And so that's the concern. Depends. I mean, there have been a couple of IPO entry points.
Right. But there was an earlier, shorter IPO base towards the beginning of the...
Yeah, and so obviously it's had that. It's profitable. There's a lot of quality things. Maybe it'll bounce back. But you have to watch these stocks very closely. And you have to have a plan. Like, where am I going to sell? Because it can be, whoa, all of a sudden you're counting this 100% gains, and then a few days later you've lost half of it. Or it could be a lot worse than that. And this is a trend is your friend. IPOs were doing very well. Software stocks were doing very well. This is a software IPO. Well, some of those growth software names are not doing well, but Beyond Meat and some of these other IPOs, they've come back down in the last few days.
Right, and even though we typically look at that 5 to 8% loss from the buy point as your sell zone, you also never want to round trip a double-digit gain. So that's something else that investors should be keeping aware. Just like you mentioned, Ed, have your out where you're going to sell.
That's right.
All right, everyone. Thanks so much for watching today. And you can always go to investors.com for all the latest stock market news and analysis. And you can catch our content as well across social media on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. So follow and subscribe to stay up to date on all the latest. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.